Okay.
All right, let's move on to Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
So 12-2 a year ago, 7-2 in conference, won
Yeah.
the Sugar Bowl against Ole Miss,
Mm-hmm.
and now Dave Arandas goes into his third season. So blew away all expectations a year ago, coming off of Aranda's 2-7 season in 2020, and then he made big changes. Brought in Jeff Grimes as offensive coordinator. His defense coordinator is Rob Roberts, who's not a big name, but did very well last year as well.
Correct.
Um, Kind of the big story I would say in the off season was Jerry Bohannon, who was our quarterback a year ago, getting beat out in the spring by Blake Shapen, who played at the end of the year when Bohannon was hurt, um, and like they just straight up named Shapen the starter in time for Bohannon to leave. But yeah, like if you almost have to feel like if they were that confident to name Blake Shapen the starter, look, they went 12-2 a year ago with Jerry Bohannon, so you almost have to feel better about the quarterback position if he got straight up beat out. Am I wrong?
Th- no, not at all. I think it's also a classy move to by Aranda
Yes,
to let Bohannon go somewhere else and try to compete somewhere else
absolutely.
instead of waiting till the last minute. He didn't have to do it, and he did it. So good for him. I Baylor won 12 games, and like you about couldn't name a player on their team. Like they had the
It's
most
true.
no-name team of all kind, like of all time. Like Jalen Petrie was like he was like I think what did he go like the second or third round in the draft? Like
Something like that.
the
Yeah.
safety, really good ball player, like
Yep.
no doubt. But it wasn't like okay, star after star after star. They won the Big 12, and against like Texas, who had all kinds of talent, Oklahoma, who had all kinds of talent, and Oklahoma State, who even people knew more about. Like, yeah, a bunch of no-namers kind of came on and won that. Shapen, okay, he feels like a game manager. Like,
Okay.
and to be fair, that's kind of what Bohannon was a bit at times. Like they're kind of like it's a run first offense for Baylor. It's not like the run and gun like what it used to be. It's a different. They have a different identity now.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I feel really confident. I believe in the coaches. How about that? I'm allowed to believe in the
Yeah.
coaches. I believe in the coaches enough to go over at 8.5. They have the tough non-conference game at BYU week 2. So like a really big week for the Big 12, the week 2 there in the non-conference.
By the
So
way,
they
you
have
could
a
also get it
tough
at
game.
7.5.
Can you really? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'll go to 7.5 and make up like for sure. Like feel super confident. I think 9-3, possibly 10-2 is about where they line up. I think they win a lot of these close games. I think they beat Oklahoma State. I think they beat Texas. I think they beat BYU. I think they'll probably lose to. I would pick them to lose to Oklahoma currently, and probably drop one more to someone maybe more like at Iowa State. But yeah, overall fairly confident in Baylor. I think 9-3, 10-2, somewhere on the horizon there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of like you, where I trust the coaches the most, more than any individual players.
Yeah.
Felt like Shapen played fairly well last year. The numbers weren't mind blowing or anything. Like you said, they were a little bit game managey, like 7 yards per attempt or something.
Yeah.
Um, Not bad. And maybe he takes that next step this year, where all of a sudden he's competing for all conference, that type of thing. Um, Four of the starters are back on the offensive line. They did lose pretty much all the major guys at running back and receiver, and you have to wonder like how Baylor is able to actually replace those guys. Um, the defense was really good. They bring back all their defensive line starters, which was their strength anyway. They
Mm-hmm.
have the one defensive lineman, Siaki Ika. I had to look up his name because I can't remember it exactly, but he
Nice.
was he was really good a year ago. So there's some guys like that. I trust them, but I think they might be a bit overrated this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that almost feels like heresy because we all love Dave Aranda so much, but
Sure.
I think they weren't quite as good as their record showed a year ago. It's kind of my personal opinion. That Matt Corral went out in the Sugar Bowl a year when they played Ole Miss, and they scored 21 points. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like Oklahoma and Texas might get them this year. We'll see.
So do you have any concern about like with Bohannon leaving? Is there any concern like with also the receivers leaving as well? Like they lost like Tyquan Thornton. I don't know if you remember him from like the Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
Like a really good ball player, and was like for sure he felt like their number one receiver. And the guy they threw it to, like on kind of every, like had to have it third down. That was the guy they're targeting.
Hmm.
Abram Smith, remember the running back? You remember him? Like the guy that had just all those yards
Yeah.
gone as well. So a lot of production gone. Jalen, like
Justin
we talked about
Ebner.
Jalen. Yeah, right. Gone too. So they had, and we talked about Petrie already on defense. Dude's gone. They don't recruit well. They haven't. Like he's having to rely on guys that weren't there. This is Aranda. Aranda's having to rely on guys that weren't there, not the guys that he brought in. Can he pull another rabbit out of the hat? I mean, I understand that you think it kind of feels like he kind of pulled one out of the hat a little bit last year, and like that's how boom, suddenly they won the Big 12 and ended up with 12 wins or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's unlikely, but it's not, you're not dissing them to say that, you're maybe more 9-3 this year instead of 10, 11, 12 wins.
Right. Yeah, I'm taking the over 7.5, but I do expect them to be a little worse than last year. And it's kind of what you talked about. I mean, it's the weapons, it's some of the defensive players they lost, and it's just feeling like they actually weren't quite as good as their record showed a year ago. They were really good, and they're like one of those teams you just trust, but you don't feel like they're a legitimate contender of any kind. Maybe for the Big 12 again, if everything breaks right, but not nationally. They're the Big 12 contender if like Brent Venables struggles in his first year and Texas is decidedly not back, and Oklahoma State falls back. Yeah,
Sure.
like in that situation, they could be the team that rises above just because they have overwhelming competence.
Overwhelmingly competent. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great adjective for Baylor football in general. They are overwhelmingly competent.
Yeah. Also, they have to go to BYU. Just looking at the schedule, they beat them last year at home, but I don't know. I think BYU could be really good this year, and I think that just makes the schedule just that much tougher. Yeah, I don't know. Not super confident. Actually, I am fairly confident they will go over 7.5. Not confident that they will compete for the Big 12 again.
How good would Texas be had they hired Dave Aranda? Like,
Ooh.
how good would Texas be? Texas could be just rotten as a program and just like run through all these coaches. That's a possibility. Like I've considered that already. But a guy that's doing more with less, like, he's going to Baylor, who is the little brother, like the littlest of the little brothers in Texas, like, and winning games. Like, he won more games than Texas and Texas A&M. Like those are the big boys on the block. And he's out here, he's outdoing them with no weapons. Like you look at the weapons that schools like that have, and he's out here, winning more games. And it's surprising to me. You just wonder, like maybe the programs are a struggle. Like maybe Texas program has some problems with it. Like that's a possibility.
It is. I would be interested to know, like, if Texas fans would be okay, because I think with Aranda there would be a chance he turns him into a perennial 10-win team pre-SEC. Like we don't know how all that will change everything, but like
right
in the Big 12, they would be a perennial 10-win team, but they would recruit at the number 10 level in the country. Like, and I wonder if Texas fans would actually be okay with that.
It's a heck of a lot better than what they're getting right now.
It is.
They're
You're
a perennial
right.
5-win team right now. So, I mean, you better start. Like, you have to move up. Like, I think, like, Arkansas hired Sam Pittman not to make him a national championship contender, although he might end up doing that. It was to raise the floor, to bring in some recruits, bring some stability, bring in a guy who knows what we are about, and build a base, build a foundation.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Baylor is doing, that like Texas has never seemed to figure out. Like, you have to start with the foundation before you get the flashy weapons.
Yeah.
First, go get a whole bunch of offensive and defensive linemen, and then go get your quarterback, your receivers, your running backs, your weapons, the flashy guys. So I think Texas is doing it wrong, and maybe they'll be able to figure it out finally and get the offensive linemen now, after you have the weapons. But like, they had talent last year. Texas had talent last year, and they won 5 games. And it didn't really feel like Baylor had near as much talent. Well, they didn't. They didn't have near as much talent, and they won 12. So, like, I guess that's the rant's over. Sorry. But like that's kind of just where I'm at with the whole like Aranda, Baylor, Texas thing.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Next we had did you go over or under on Baylor? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
I went over. Yeah,
Okay.
I think like 9-3, 10-2,
Yeah.
somewhere in there. Yeah.